Well, good day, Prescott, and thank you for tuning in to another Prescott E-News Prescott Talk Show. My name's Glenn Martin, and I'm the host. And today, it's in the middle of the political season. I've got Brandon Montoya running for City Council for the city of Prescott. Thank you for coming in, Brandon. I appreciate you taking the time.
Well, Glenn, I'm happy to be here.
Excellent. For the folks who may not know who you are, where you've been, what you're doing, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you're running for council?
Well, I'd be happy to. So I am Brandon Montoya, and I've lived in Prescott since I was 11. And so I went to, just down the street from here, I went Mile High Middle School, graduated from Prescott High School in 2003. I've been living and working in this community since I was a teenager. About 5 years ago, my wife and I started our business, which is Montoya Wealth Management. It's right on Willow Creek Road. And so, I've been kind of slowly moving to getting more involved in local stuff. For me, that started with, I got real involved in my Rotary Club, Prescott Frontier Rotary Club. A good friend of mine, I went there because I was trying to promote my business. So that's why most people join civic clubs, business clubs. And it was not super great for my business, but it was really great for my heart. I didn't pick up a lot of clients, but I really got passionate about what Rotary is about. And one of the things that I love about Rotary, and it's kind of funny because they must have at some point done a focus group or something, but they used to have this motto that they really promoted, and then they've gotten rid of it a little bit, but it's service above self. And so that really resonated with me when I was in that room and going to those meetings at noon on Tuesdays. And the Rotary Club is really engaged in serving the community. So I started getting involved in the community in that way, doing a lot of service projects. I served as the chair of their fundraiser committee, and then Steve Rossetti at the resort, who was the president of the club, said, "Hey, Brandon, why don't you take over as president next year?" And I said, "Well, I don't know, Steve." But you were
drafted.
I missed a meeting, and but it was great. I loved leading the club. Obviously, I was leading the club 2019, 2020. And the pandemic happened in the middle of that. So there was a huge transition that we kind of had to deal with, but we came through it and did really well. We actually grew our club in my year in size and continued to grow in the next year. And it's a big club now. It's the biggest Rotary club in Prescott. And so I was really Rotary's so near and dear to my heart. I also, right around the same time I joined Rotary, I went through Prescott Area Leadership, which was a organization started by Ron Barnes and Jim Howard, who used to be Prescott Unified School District Superintendent. And so they started that organization about 30 years ago with the idea of promoting servant leadership. And so that's a big kind of tenet of the organization. I went through that with Amy Bonney, who just became the chief of police. Martha Baden.
Congratulations, by the way, Amy.
I was super happy to see Amy. She's top notch. And Tyler Goodman, who's the one of the assistant city managers at the City Hall. Scott Freitag, who's the chief of CAFMA. We were all part of that cohort together. So it was really great because I got to know a lot of community leaders, and they really emphasized in that program understanding the issues that are facing Prescott, and they're really trying to make sure that they're cultivating a servant leadership mindset among these young community leaders. So I kind of got into that, and I was like, wow, this is great. And so I'm just, that was kind of always running in the background for me. I was just like, wow, I'm learning all these things. I'm learning about my community. I want to be more engaged. I want to be more involved. And then I'll be perfectly honest with you, Glenn. I saw how the vacancy of Billy Orr's city council seat was handled. And I was terribly disappointed with that. I think that what I saw happen is that there was a pretty big outcry among the community, myself included, that we didn't really want to have someone appointed into that seat for 33 months without election. It fundamentally goes against democracy. And I've heard a lot of excuses about why that happened, but it just doesn't resonate with me. One of the excuses that I've heard, now where I am sitting now, we're a few weeks out from the election, was that someone running for that seat couldn't put together a campaign to run in this election. I have done it, and so has Eric Moore, and so has Jessica Hall and Grant Casada. All these people put together campaigns, so that just doesn't pass.
It just
muster.
depends on how much you're going to put into your campaign.
Yeah.
I mean, really, it's I've seen some people. As long as they got their signatures, man, it just all of a sudden, boom. It's like a flower, man. It just opens up and explodes. And I think that's kind of like you, I never heard of you, Brandon. I mean, and I started watching a little bit of Facebook and watching what, I try to keep in tune of all the political stuff.
Sure.
And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I want people to understand that, that we do have choices out there.
Definitely.
For this election. And while I'm on the thought of that, because I'm old and I forget things, I want to make sure that Eric Moore, Jessica, and Grant all know that they're invited to come on this show and talk to their platform. All you got to do is contact our editor, make a time slot, and I'll be glad to have you on here. And really, Brandon, the way this show started was it's information.
Sure.
I'm not here to debate you about your thoughts or anything. What really got me is I've been involved with campaigns for about 6 years now. And somebody told me, oh, well, the guy who's got most signs win. And I thought, how could that be? You talk about democracy, you don't even know what this guy believes in, right?
Right.
So I was approached and gave him the opportunity to be able to have you guys, the candidates, on. So this is really your show. This is time that you can talk to the people of Prescott and let them know who you are, what you believe. And I just throw some questions out.
Sure.
To you. And that's kind of, again, for the other people who might want to come on, Phil Good has been on my show several times as a council person. We'll have him on soon. But this is really a good opportunity for the people of Prescott to find out, their choices.
Sure, I completely agree.
So, you know what? I'm going to open Pandora's box up right away.
Go for it.
Because the biggest thing that I see is development and water. And I just want you to give me your points about development, developers, and what's going on with Prescott Water, how we're building over.
No, and it's funny you say it's a Pandora's box, but it is probably the single biggest question every time. And we're running a real grassroots campaign that I'm proud of, because I'm literally going out into the community and knocking on doors and introducing myself. So, this is great because it's a big platform to get out to people, but I'm doing it the old-fashioned way too. Yeah. And that's how we got our signatures too. We didn't use any paid volunteers. We were out there getting our signatures in the rain, and there was a little bit of sleet in the beginning of it. So trying to get the pens to work, and but it's how you pay your dues. But yeah, everyone from when I've asked people to sign my petitions to when I'm going to doors introducing myself right now, they're asking about growth in water, and I think there's a lot there to talk about. For me, one of the things that I'm really proud about my campaign is that we aren't taking any contributions from developers. Period. Zero. And it's not.
How about realtors?
I don't know that I've taken any donations from a realtor, to be honest. But I can't completely attest to. I'll be perfectly honest. But what I will say, because the reason is because there's a ton of realtors in Prescott, so it seems like everyone's a realtor.
Yeah, they're on every corner, man. Used to be lawyers, but now
But what I would say is, I think the reason that's important, and I was in a forum recently, and one of the other candidates was talking about, well, these are people too, and they have a right to participate in the process. And I don't think that it's anything where people are trying to silence the voice of developers. I think what it comes down to is this idea that they already have influence, because they're landowners, right? They own a lot of land. They do business in front of City Hall on a regular basis. They make, pretty significant philanthropic contributions to the community as well. They have influence. And everyone is fine. And again, it's a personal choice. I don't begrudge anyone for taking developer dollars necessarily. But for me, and this is, my business, my background is being a financial advisor, a wealth manager. And so the way that our firm is set up is we are a registered investment advisor, which means that we are a fiduciary for our clients. And that's, I will tell you, in the initial years of starting my business, it meant that we had to grow in a very intentional way. Now we're very successful. We manage $20 million of assets for about 200 clients. My wife and I have worked very hard to get to where we are. But in the early days, there was times when people would come in and they would say, hey, I want to do business with you. And I would say, it's not really appropriate or in your best interest to do it. Because one of the duties that you have when you're a fiduciary is to act in the best interest of that person. And I think that is why I'm not taking developer contributions, because it's the exact same thing. It's not that there's anything wrong with taking those, but it's presenting yourself with a conflict of interest. If someone owns a large, asphalt company, and they make a $5,000 contribution to my campaign, the appearance of that conflict of interest is
Right.
really significant. Because if that person comes down and does business with the city, and I'm on city council, and they're like, "Hey, Brandon, good to see you."
Yeah.
And they're like, "We really
You
would
just
like
bought-
this business."
yeah,
And that's unfortunately, I think
It's not against the law.
no, it's not.
I mean, and, they can take the contributions all they want to,
Yeah,
so and they're not breaking the law, but the conference of
the conflict of interest.
thank
yeah.
you.
Yeah,
Easy
yeah.
for you to say.
But so to me, and the reason why is, and I think this is another reason for me why I got engaged in this is because some people say, well, why are you anti-growth? And I say, I'm not anti-growth. We need growth in our community.
Right.
But to me, what it comes down to is strategic vision for our growth. It has to be intentional, and there has to be a respect for the land. One of the things I hear Eric Moore talk about a lot is this idea of respecting the land. And he's a very nature-oriented, conservationist-minded person. He's really involved in the Audubon Society, and so I think he gets that in a way that some other people don't. But what I would say is, for me, the pace of growth we've had in the last 4 years has been unlike anything I've seen. And I've lived here for 25 years. And so to me, it feels like I'm like, wow, I'm driving, my business is on Willow Creek Road. I'll tell you what, 2 or 3 times a day I hear emergency vehicles going down that road. And it's because there's accidents that are happening because the traffic is more significant.
Infrastructure can't take it.
Yeah.
You hit on a pretty good significant areas. I heard during one of the debate, and I'll say it, the mayor said somebody on this council on this stage is prejudiced against developers, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, but that's just not true. I don't think anybody is prejudiced against the developers. I think developers are, they developed our nation. We should be glad they're there, but there needs to be some type of control,
Right?
Or the developers will concrete this whole area. They just will. You can't rubber stamp all these programs. I use this all the time. It's something Jim Lamerson, when he ran last time, he told me, Glenn, if you're not growing, you're dying.
Yeah, he said. I've heard him say that too.
So you got to have some development.
Yeah.
And for people like me, I came from California 5-6 years ago, and I think 6 years ago is quite true. But anyway,
so I got you beat by about 20 years.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm not one of these people who say I'm going to slam the door behind me and nobody else can come. This is a beautiful area.
Well, people want to live here.
People want to live here.
I mean, it makes sense.
And this is America. You should be able to move here.
Well, and it's good for us, right? But again, and this is something that I've been thinking about, is you look at, the type of development that Prescott has traditionally had. You look at some of the subdivisions like Hazley, Hidden Valley, even the Mountain Club area. These areas they were developed where they found the area where they wanted to build a house. They laid their pad, and then they incorporated as much of the environment because it's beautiful. Why would you get rid of that environment,
Exactly.
right? Could you imagine if when they were developing Timber Ridge, if they had gone in there with just bulldozing everything out, there would have been outrage.
Yeah.
But somehow when we're doing it in North Prescott, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
And again, I think the thing is, people come here for a reason, right? Like, you left California for a reason.
Yeah.
And when I drive over by the airport, it looks a lot like California to me. Your houses are this close together. You sneeze in your house and someone says bless you on either side. Like, I don't know that there's a character to Prescott that we're going to lose if we're not careful. And that's what it comes down to me.
I think that you're right. I think that, again, I drove down Glassford Road and went over there by the 89 where Jasper's being built.
Sure.
And all I saw was rooftops and these little cookie cutter houses. And again, coming from California,
it
It reminds me of Irvine and El Toro when they bulldozed all the orange fields.
Yeah.
They built all these homes. The infrastructure couldn't hold it. I mean, you try going down the 5 freeway. I mean, if you don't believe me, it's kind of like, and we faced that right here in Prescott.
Yeah.
Because just coming over, like you were talking about, the tourists coming up here for 4th of July right now, the streets are heavier. Driving down, down to PV or coming back up to Prescott. Like I said, I've been here for 6 years. I can feel it. I can see it.
Well, and I think that's the thing. We see it in a variety of infrastructure, right? You talk about infrastructure, and to me, what I think about is this idea of, it's many ways of infrastructure, right? Like the roads themselves, we see the tear down of the roads a little bit, and that's the wear down.
Right.
And we have a great group of people in the city who maintain those roads and do a lot of work. But they're getting, there's only so much they can do to keep up with it, right? And then the other part I think about that's also infrastructure is police and fire, right? You keep building and building, and frankly, we probably don't have enough, right? And so these guys are stretching out further and further. The territory that they're covering is bigger and bigger.
You bet.
And to me, what that means is then we look at it and we're like, wow, this is, going to increase response times. And then guess what's going to happen?
Safety issues,
right? And then when response times increase, our insurance rates are going to go up, right? And that's the other part of it. For me is that we have to be, again, you need growth. You do. You can see the towns in Arizona that didn't have growth. Winslow, for instance, it's just a ghost town.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone wants that. But what we do want is to make sure that we're strategic and we have a vision for how we do it. And I think we have to be really careful. And this is the second part of what you're getting at. For me, what I think about is our water portfolio. And water is just, I've spent a lot of time talking to people here who are hydrologists, people who've worked for SRP, who live up here now because they've retired. And they're saying, man, I spent some time talking to Gary Beverly, who's the president of CWAGS, Citizens Water Advocacy Group. They just had a forum a couple weeks ago. And he has said that the Paulding gauge of the Verde River is the lowest it has ever been in 50 some years. That's like a canary in the coal mine.
Yeah.
And people want to say, oh, well, we've got tons of water. We're in the middle of a severe drought, folks. Like, I just don't, it doesn't smell right to me. And I feel like, I think about one of the concerns I have is people say, well, we're only pulling on the Little Chino aquifer right now, right? One of the things they say is that, well, we have the Big Chino pipeline that we can use, right? Well, one of the things that occurs to me, and I'm a numbers guy, I'm fiscally conservative, right? So when people talk about this Big Chino pipeline, I've heard estimates that this thing is going to cost as much as $300 million. The city of Prescott can't make that happen. So what they'll do invariably is they'll float a bond, right? They'll float that bond and they'll say, oh, well, we're going to make the servicing of the bond happen disproportionately on the new development side. Well, the development's not going to happen at a pace where that'll happen. Like there won't be enough people to cover a bond that size. So what it means is people like you and me who live here in Prescott,
You bet.
our rates and our taxes are going to go up. And I just don't think that that's the kind of thing that we're growing at a point where we have to, we're now staring down the barrel of, oh man, we're going to have to do that. And I brought this up at the CWAG forum. I said, there are people in Chino Valley, their wells are already going dry.
Yeah.
There are people
And
in
in
Williams.
Dewey. I was reading a thing where there are people in Dewey that are starting to suck up dirt.
Yeah, Williamson Valley too. And here's the thing, that's my big concern, right? But then every person who I've talked to who's a hydrologist or a water geologist who's done the work and looked at the data has said that you open up that Big Chino pipeline and it'll dry up the Verde River. Which is a real shame, by the way, because that's one of the longest. I think it's the oldest river in all of Prescott, all of Arizona. And so, to me, the other concern about that is, then you have SRP will be up here in a hot second, and they'll sue us, and they'll do to Prescott what they've done to Payson, which is really concerning to me. And so, I think we have to have a strategic vision about how we approach these things. We have to be intentional. We have to be thoughtful. We have to be mindful of the consequences. And for me, I've lived here for 25 years. I'm going to live here for another 25 years. I'm probably even longer than that. Who's to say where I'll be in my 60s? But that's my plan. I have a business here. I have a house here. I'm raising my kids. I've got my 5-year-old who's starting kindergarten next year. I've got my 14-year-old daughter who's going to be at Prescott High School, which is just a real mind-blowing thing to think. She's going to be walking through the same high school halls that I did. But for me, when I think about in context of that is some of these people who are running, and I think they're good, it's all good people running for office. But I think that they're not using strategic vision. They're not thinking past this election or the next election. I want to go and serve on city council, and I want to think about not just the next 5 years, not just the next 10 years, but what we're leaving for
our kids.
Yeah.
I mean that exactly. While you were talking about the Verde, I recall, Save the Dells
Yeah.
had a event over at the Elks Theater. I went with Noel Campbell,
Okay.
and they watched a video called Viva La Verde.
Yeah, I've
I
seen it.
learned a whole lot about the Verde River, and then I hear some of the politicians, not just in Prescott, there was actually someone in PV, say, "Oh, don't worry about it. If you can't see the river flowing, there's water underneath it." And I'm like you said, there's a smell test
Yeah.
that I think that we need to be involved with. So, there's so many issues with water. I've had Gary Beverly on before, and hopefully I can get him back on and we
Sure.
can talk about recent stuff that's
He's a wealth
going
of
on.
information and just a really smart guy.
Because again, I think these are the two biggest issues that are going on in Prescott, and that's what a lot of the voters are going to be looking at.
Well-
and that's going to put the direction of Prescott for the next several years in light. Are we going to continue down the road of the heavier development, or are we going to start capitalizing?
Are we going to lose our character?
Are we going to lose our character, or are all of our antelope going to be gone? I mean, is that what we want, or do we want the? I know you got a thought, but I want to stop it right there because I'm going to have our editor cut in a commercial
Sure.
that Noel Campbell made.
Sure.
It's a nonpartisan PAC, and it actually talks about, is this our heritage? Because I think one of the talking points on somebody's campaign is our heritage.
Sure.
So, and he also talks about the water issues and who he's endorsing. Now, mind you, Brandon, he endorsed you. I know.
Yeah, I've heard this.
You've been endorsed by one of the most senior, respected Republican legislators that we've had from this area for a long, long time.
No, I'm thrilled to have his support because
This goes over party. So before we talk about the parties and all that other garbage, let's, if I can have that rolled real quick. This is a soundbite.
Is it true to our heritage, where developers get sweetheart deals and hardworking taxpayers get the bill for infrastructure? Is it true to our heritage, where the city council gives our water rights to developers outside Prescott city limits? And is it true to our heritage, where residents have limited time to comment about development within our iconic landmark, the Granite Dells? Hi, this is former State Representative Noel Campbell. I may be retired from politics, but I'll never stop caring about Prescott's future. True to our heritage is electing leaders who answer to everyone. The upcoming city election sets Prescott's future on growth and water issues. That's why I'm supporting Phil Good for mayor and Eric Moore and Brandon Montoya for council. They understand and support managed growth and a sustainable water policy. Please support Phil, Eric, and Brandon. Prescott's true heritage counts on your decision.
Paid for by Arizonans for Promoting Integrity, a nonpartisan PAC.
So what do you think about that?
I'm thrilled. I think Noel brings up all the really important things to think about in terms of the consequences of this election. And then I guess for me, I had no idea this was being done. So yeah. I'll say I'm pleasantly surprised because Noel's he's a political heavyweight in this area. And I have a lot of respect for a lot of the work he did while he was a state rep here. I think it's important to really think about the long-term consequences of this election.
Absolutely. Yeah, like I said, Noel's been very active in trying to save the Dells as much as possible. I believe he was trying to get money for the Storm Ranch to make that a public park. And then, of course, COVID came along and destroyed all that. So he's quite an advocate of saving our natural resources in this area. So, I think that out of all the issues that we have, even in its infrastructure and some of our PSPRS, and all this other stuff, and that, by the way, people, I got a question. Why do you keep saying PSPRS? What is it? It's the pension system for our fire and police.
Fire, police, and
some of our judges.
Yeah, judges, and then also our probation officer, the prison officers as well.
Guards.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of, and Brandon, I need to get you back. because we're
Well,
just
well, so-
scratching the surface
I know,
on a
I
lot
know.
of this stuff.
So the one thing I
but
will
we're
say,
going to come back on that. But let's talk a little bit. I want to lead you back into the bipartisanship of this race.
sure.
I'm a conservative guy. I'm a conservative talk show, and there's a lot of people out there that are Biden supporters and Trump supporters. But I think that there is a commonality that when it comes to our local politics right here, we don't want to see our area get destroyed.
Right. Well, and I, to that point, I would say, to be clear, in my mind, there's a reason why we have our local elections in off years, right? It's because we don't need all that national noise. We need to focus on the issues that are here. And this is something I've said to a lot of people, is you don't have to be a Republican or a Democrat or an independent. None of that matters to appreciate Thumb Butte, Granite Mountain, to appreciate, the Dells. All those things, the beauty of our landscape, we live in God's country, in my mind. So it's beautiful, and I think when we really just strip away it all, it doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters because we all are engaged in caring about these issues, and that's my approach. Is I have supporters who I think are like you, who are very conservative. I have supporters that are on the other end too, and to me, there's a commonality there, right? There's an overlap because they care about Prescott, and that's why I'm doing this, is because I care deeply about Prescott. And to me, I felt called to run in this race because I felt like it was my time to step up and represent my community and make sure that it's the community, it stays the community. If it's not, I could have waited another few years, but by then it might be too late.
Yeah. Well, it's honorable that you would step up to it, because this is a lot of work. It costs a lot of money.
Sure.
You don't really make a whole lot.
Yeah.
And, you do it for love of community.
Yeah, exactly.
And, that's to be admired by all of us.
Sure.
No matter who's running,
Yeah, exactly. I agree.
I think that's something we should all be grateful for. And politics do. They start right here.
Yeah.
It doesn't, what goes on in Washington.
Was it?
You're just like one vote from that, and after that's over with. But man, when you go down to the city council meetings and you get up to that podium, and speak to the council, and I'm sure you got email addresses and websites and where people can get a hold of you.
Yeah. So one of the things that I'll tell people is the best way to find out about a lot of my platform is to go directly to brandonmontoya.com. There is all my contact information. There's a way that you can send me a message directly there. I have a lot of people requesting signs. You can request a sign on there. You can follow my Facebook page. It's Brandon for Prescott it's the @ symbol. And one of the things that's really important to me is to be as accessible and available as possible during this campaign. But then, should I be fortunate to be elected, I'm going to run my term as a city council member the exact same way. I want to be a representative of the people. Our tagline for our campaign is a leadership that listens, and that starts now, but it continues through my term if I should be a city council member.
Well, thank you again, Brandon, for coming in. And it's a policy of this show that at the close of our show, we always thank our current and prior serving military for your service and giving us the opportunity to sit here and talk about politics, because there's a lot of countries, you say something wrong, man, you're in jail or a gulag for a long, long time.
Well, I'll say amen to that. There's a lot of hardworking men and women who keep our rights.
Absolutely. There's a lot of men and women that keep our streets safe too, and that's our law enforcement and firefighters. Definitely. We thank you so much for keeping us safe and keeping our community well in hand. And along with that, I started adding the medical community, our hospital workers, our EMS. We're just getting over all this COVID stuff. What they have done is just beyond.
Well, isn't it interesting that an event like that really puts into relief the people who are really the bulwarks of our community? Yeah.
I'm even going to throw in grocery workers.
There was a time when I worked in a grocery store, so I would agree with you there.
I worked for Kroger for 42 years.
Okay, well there you go.
And I know a lot of the guys and gals that were, they manned their station no matter what.
Yeah, they were
kept America fed.
It wasn't like you could work from home if you worked in a grocery store, right?
That's right. Anyway, Prescott, thank you so much. Brandon, I've got to have you back soon. You're a pleasure to speak to. We've got so many issues. I want to talk about infrastructure. I do want to talk about PSPRS. I want to talk about the CARES Act. I want to talk about some financials, which I'm sure you excel on.
Sure.
And there's so much more to this race than just, like I said, the main talking points is water and growth. So with that, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Glenn.
Prescott, thank you again. We appreciate you tuning in. And like I said, we'll be back with some of the other candidates, and we'll keep you informed as much as possible. Please, if you like the show, put a like down on there. If you're on YouTube, we are going to be on Facebook, and we're also on the web. So there's lots of venues that you can watch these shows on. Send them to your friends. Let people know, other voters especially, what you're seeing today. And with that, thank you.